What's another general, is a rushed timeline, for instance, a red flag for you? Or I guess you see incomplete information. Maybe there's a realtor that you don't know that's pressing you. Have you had much of that over the years? Or
Well, the biggest thing that our industry has overgone, I would say, over the last, and I started doing this in 2014. When I started doing this, there was very little, I mean, it existed, but not the way it does today of the F word, and I'm talking about fraud. Fraud has been always a thing, but it has really ramped up over the last, I'd say, 4 to 5 years.
Since COVID, since 2020, right?
Yeah. And wire fraud is a big deal in our world.
I mean, because you think that's so hard to do, but it's still prevalent. Wire fraud.
I caught one on Christmas Eve 2025.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
2.5 weeks ago we caught one.
Gosh.
Caught another one the week after. You don't think it's real, it's real.
Yeah.
They're out there, and there's different ways they do it, and title companies have different ways to try to combat it. But fraud, whether it be wire fraud, whether it be land fraud has really crept up and become a big deal lately. And that's where it's essentially identity fraud, where you steal the identity of a seller who owns land. It's usually raw land, but it doesn't have to be. And then they try to sell that land to a good faith purchaser who has no idea, but then the actual owner of the land has no idea, and that land has been sold out from under them. And so that's become a thing that we're all concerned about. And so what we didn't have 12 years ago, we now have, as far as we have cybersecurity insurance, cyber fraud insurance. Okay, we didn't have that when I started 12 years ago. Now we spend an awful lot of money on insurance premiums to protect ourselves in case we do send.
You said mean the title company.
The title agency.
You have your own.
I have my own cyber fraud insurance policy. We spend an awful lot of money on fraud prevention software, where everybody knows how to, you've got the dual authentication where you got to put the code in and all of that. Well, our clients now have to go through a process before we get to closing where we have to verify their identity. So we're taking copies of their driver's license, verifying it up against selfies that they take to verify that they are that person who's under contract to sell. Things like wiring instructions, that's changed. I mean, when I first got into this business, we would just email out wiring instructions, and I'd email Tanny, I'd email you wiring instructions, you'd get an email with our bank information, you'd go to the bank, you'd send us a wire.
Yep.
Don't do that anymore. And, even to the point where we started getting to the point where people would delete the last 4 digits and make you call the office and everything. Even that can be, to a degree, something that can be compromised. So now we go through third-party wire fraud and secure wiring instruction companies that do that for us, and we push it out through that way. So the technology has gotten more advanced over the years, but you know how it is, fraud and everything. The criminals are always seems to be one step ahead, and we're reacting to them. And people always, one of the questions I get asked a lot at closing, Tanny, is, why do we have to sign all of this paperwork? Why do we have to do all this in person? Everything else is e-sign. Everything else is digital. And I just tell people, look, we're going backwards. We're going backwards in a lot of ways with AI and everything. Because with all of that stuff comes more fraud, and we have to kind of go more manual to keep things secure.